Welcome to Human Resources Interview Series. I'm Jose, co-founder at Teamspective and the host of this interview. Our today's guest, Katariina Korhonen, is the Chief People Officer at Smartly.io, a fast-growing advertising technology company that has over 600 employees around the world and has attracted a lot of A-class talents with their active and transparent feedback culture. It's really exciting to hear and learn about their experiences. This time we have a slightly unique format. Kata joined our panel discussion some time ago, and this interview consists of the best parts of that panel discussion. You will also hear from Teamspective CEO Jaakko Kaikuluoma, who hosted the panel discussion. With this brief introduction, let's jump to Jaakko's first question to Kata.
But first, I would like to ask Katariina about the feedback culture that has been built into the DNA of Smartly from the very beginning, and especially about radical candor. So, can you tell us a bit about your approach to feedback culture?
Feedback, giving and receiving feedback is super important at Smartly. We feel that candid feedback keeps us humble and hungry to learn. And we pretty much practice radical candor in our everyday work and feedback. This has been something that has been in Smartly's DNA since the very beginning. We challenge each other directly, and at the same time, we care each other. So we are doing it very respectfully, but it's very much something that we encourage everyone to do. That's the only way how we can learn and teach each other and widen our thinking. And this is also something that we do from the bottom to top and vice versa. So everyone gives feedback to each other. And we do this also, we don't give feedback to customers, but we seek feedback also very actively from customers so that we learn, and we share feedback in our daily meetings, Monday kickoffs, retros, Friday demos, and theme days. And naturally we are communicating over Slack and that kind of channel. And then we have some surveys and more, but I can tell about those a little bit more later. But we actually provide feedback training to all Smartleys in the very beginning of the onboarding journey. So it's part of our DNA.
That's very interesting to hear. So, radical candor can be considered quite extreme because the stages are like obnoxious aggression is better than ruinous empathy, for instance. So it's better to be obnoxious and say what you think than to kind of not say and hold back from saying something. And it can be quite demanding of people. So how do you manage that?
I think that's a very good question, and that is something that we are actually monitoring quite a lot. But I would say that the key is that we communicate very respectfully with each other. It's about the topics and things that we are giving feedback. It's not like, or it shouldn't be so much like behavioral thing. So we try to communicate respectfully, take into account other person's situation. It doesn't mean when you give radical candor and when you are radical candor giving feedback, you cannot be mean or rude. It's usually easier to do face to face over Slack. You need to be even a little bit more mindful. But I would say that all the appraisals and appreciations are more than welcome to be public. But if you are giving like constructive feedback, we prefer to give that like 101 and do not call out people publicly. So when we share learnings for the whole company, we don't pinpoint individual individuals, but we focus on learnings on a larger scale. And when it's more like individual feedback, constructive feedback, we do it in one-on-ones. And as I mentioned, every Smartly go through feedback training and communication training in the beginning of Smartly journey, but we also repeat those things regular basis for all Smartly, so that we all remember how to give and receive feedback.
Thank you. So you also have a lot of people from different nationalities and different backgrounds. And can you give any tips on how to get different people from different cultures to talk same language in feedback?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. I would say we have actually, I just checked, more than 60 nationalities at Smartly. So it's a lot. I would say that having such a diverse group of people is great thing. It challenges our ways of working and thinking and how we can communicate to each other. Something that worked like 5 years ago doesn't necessarily work anymore, but I think that's good. How we get everyone communicates in the same way, we don't. Naturally, there are differences in regions and so on, but that's understandable. But what is common with everyone is our shared values. Smartly values are super strong part of our identity as a company, and everyone goes through also like culture and value trainings in the very beginning, and we talk a lot about our values, and we see those in our everyday work. So I would say, rather than sharing exactly same communication or feedback ways, we share the values and culture. But then, this being said, as I said, we give a lot of feedback training and communication training, and we have built those training on top of our values, so those would resonate well with our people. And we learn every day, so we also make amendments to our ways of working and how we give feedback over the time. So there, it's very different than it was 2015, but we are very open and honest with each other.
And that's a great starting point to any company growth story. I can imagine that it's not really easy to establish this high level of openness and communication between employees. So, do you have any tips for that?
What I have seen that has worked well is that when you give feedback, or if you have retro or what not, when you more like celebrate that as a company, or is it, if it's like Friday demos or what, if you make it like positive thing, that okay, great that you shared, and even it has gone very much south, but if you celebrate that, it gives like courage to everyone to share and make mistakes and also give and receive feedback. So I think that's important part also.
But it also, like all of this, to get people to express openly, it takes leadership, it takes example. And I'd like to ask about an interesting practice that I've heard you have at Smartly, which is the management Ask Me Anything sessions. So can you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, we have like monthly happy hours, Ask Me Anything, and we do one in EMEA APAC time zone. We just had one this week, and then we have one on America's time zone. And we are using slido.com there, and people will add their questions there. So far, we have always asked people to ask questions with their own names. So those are not like anonymous questions, but they are people are asking pretty much anything. It's Ask Me Anything, and I have seen quite a lot of different questions. And sometimes it's good channel to get direct feedback also from employees, sometimes raising very good topics, uh, open discussions, also clarify things, and people are super active in those sessions. It's usually 1 hour. We go through 10 to 20 questions, depends on how big questions those are. But our whole executive team always prioritize those, and we want to be there. So that's very, very good channels. Yeah.
Do you have any example of some question that was particularly interesting?
Oh, that's good question. Yeah, I would say maybe interesting areas. It's sometimes people are asking very business heavy questions, which challenges us and our thinking, and then a lot of people related questions relating to DNA initiatives. People are interested in about compensation, and also what um, what kind of strategical plans we have for the company. Usually people are asking questions that we haven't maybe necessarily proactively shared, and it sometimes also challenges us to think that should we be a little bit more proactive in certain areas and so on. And for example, DNI is good example, because we are doing a lot of DNI work at Smartly, and we have a lot of measurements in the place that we are monitoring, and naturally there's always more to do, but we are doing quite a lot at the moment. But what we learned in the latest Ask Me Anything, that we should actually communicate a little bit more what we are doing in that end, and that was a very good learning experience for our executive team, that we need to also remember to communicate for the broader group. Not everyone knows, and not everyone is part of the people team or so that was very eye-opening session last time.
Thank you, Kata, for sharing about the thinking and experiences from smartly.io. It's super interesting to hear, because many of these things cannot really be forced into action without having a really strong commitment and the right mindset from the company's leaders. That was it for this time's Human Resources interview. Stay tuned for more, and feel free to reach out if you have any ideas which topics or which people we should cover next.